Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. We're very glad you're with us today. It is June 24th, 2022. Our agenda this morning, we'll start out with success stories. We'll then have everybody put their 30-second introductions into the chat window. We'll then hear from our committee reports, workshop, job fairs, practice interview team, interview success workshop, the career tip of the week, and then we will have our main event around 9:55, 10 o'clock. For those on Zoom, please, you can open up the chat box. You can put any questions you have throughout the presentation on in the chat box. For those on Facebook right now, you're welcome to put your information and comments and questions into the comment field, and we will be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. This group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader got a job and said, who wants to take over? I think I scratched my face. He said, okay, Jeff, you're it. So I've been doing that ever since. In 2008, I started a second website, careerusa.org or careerdfw.org, to help those who are unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I started a second website, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, also known as the Dallas Pit Crew. It's a great way to find out and practice your interviewing skills. Well, we like to start the meeting off with good news. Do we have any landings? If anybody has landed, please unmute your mic and tell us your good news.
Hang on a second. Well, some of you may know Brian Kaspari, who participated in several groups, including Jeff's group, but his daughter, Amanda, who is in nursing school, landed a job at UT Southwestern, and she'll be a nurse lead in the labor and delivery area. Now, she's finishing school, but the cool thing about Amanda was that on her interview, she did so well, they made the offer at the end of the interview. So she's going to be finishing school and working at UT Southwestern, and it was her #1 target.
All right. Well, congratulations to her. All right. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? All right, let's move on here. Let's see here. So it's time now, if everybody would, in the chat window, please, for those people who are watching us on Zoom in the chat window, please put your name, comma, phone number, comma, email address, comma, position you're looking for, comma, 2 or 3 target companies, and then hit the return key. For those people watching on Facebook, if you put your personal information into the comment field, I will delete it right after the meeting, so it won't hang out there forever and ever. And we've got 5 people currently here live watching us in the room. So we'll welcome those people, and they're filling out a little slip of paper, and we will get their information added to the into the chat information. So we'll put 30 seconds on the clock. All righty, we'll give you plenty of time, so please do that. If by putting your information in there, I'll be able to update the roster. You'll get an email at the end of the afternoon with any information that we've put in, and please look over the list and see who you know. Do you know? Is there a company name? Is there somebody who you can help later to be able to help do this? All right, if you're not familiar with the calendars on careerdfw.org, please check out the calendars. There's a list of there's a calendar for career fairs and training workshops, as well as lots of other things. All the career fairs are in pink, the training workshops are in gold, the networking groups that are meeting in person are in blue, the webinars are all in purple. So check out the CareerFW calendar, and you may find something on there you want to go do this week. If you know somebody who is unemployed, please let them know about CareerFW and Career USA, two totally free websites. They don't collect any personal information. They're just there to help you in your job search. Well, I got an email or a text message saying that Mark is on the way, so we will skip Mark for now, and we will come back to him when he shows up. So let's hear from Walt.
Well, hello again. Walt Glass. I'm an interview success coach, and I enjoy helping people gain skills and confidence for successful hiring interviews. And so how do I do that? I offer the Interview Success Workshop, which is free, and you need to be registered to attend. Excuse me, well, Jeff is. All right, go ahead. So you'll see a QR code that's on the screen, and that will start an email to my Yahoo email address to say, I'd like to register for the workshop. And so there's a little editing you need to do. Give me your phone number and how you learned about the workshop. Look me up on LinkedIn, because under Walt Glass, you'll see in my About section more details about the workshop. A little bit about it. It is a very informal workshop. It's a learning opportunity. Now, you will get interviewed. You will get a video of your interview. You're going to get a handout with a lot of things we're going to mention. You'll get an hour-long video that goes with the handout and some other files that will help you in that job-seeking interview process. There's really no need for us to have stress, anxiety, fear, seeing our life flash before our eyes during an interview. And we're all here to help you. We're just seeing if we can improve our skills. And so the model is, how do we sell who we are, what we do, and how we can help? I see a lot of I do's in interviews, a little bit about I am, our personality and soft skills, almost none of the value we bring, which is what they're buying. So how do we do that? And at the same time, how do we differentiate ourselves from other candidates? You will not believe how common some of the responses are. For example, how about your salary requirements? Well, I'm sure that we can come to a mutually agreeable amount as we go forward, and we just kind of blow off the question. I was talking to a recruiter this week who came through the workshop, and she said she hears that answer 75% of the time, and it means absolutely nothing to her when a candidate says that. So what do we say? So we'll talk about the 12 basic categories of questions and go over the motives and how we might have options, structures, strategies to respond. Be glad to have you participate. Come on down. We call it Learning Without Squirming. And what they'll say is the price you must pay for blowing the competition away. It's easy to see how excited you'll be when you learn there's no cost. It's free.
My applause. Sorry about that. Okay. I understand here, I see here that you're having some issues with audio. See here, at least I can understand what's being said. Sorry about that. We'll have to work on that for the next session. All right, it's time to hear about the career tip of the week, which you can find on the Career DFW or Career USA websites every week. So Rosanna, thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. All right. Well, this career tip of the week is a very long one this week. And so I've kind of modified it a little bit. I would highly recommend that you go back and reread the entire thing, because for me, it printed out as a 6-page read. I know y'all don't want to hear me for 6 pages. So I'm going to edit it as we go along here. All right. So this career tip of the week is dated June the 19th. It's a list of weaknesses, 10 things to say in an interview. It can be hard to answer the question, what is your greatest weakness? Especially when you expect to be discussing the skills, talents, and capabilities that make you the strongest candidate for the job. Framing your weaknesses positively can be challenging, but when you combine self-awareness with an action plan, you can quickly stand apart from the other job applicants. The key to preparing for this question is to identify weaknesses that still communicate strengths. This will show the interviewer you're introspective enough to know the areas of opportunity. So we're going to go through 10 different weaknesses. Example of weaknesses for interviewing. Here are a few examples of the best weaknesses to mention in an interview. First, I focus too much on the details. Be sure to explain how you're making improvements in this area by looking at the big picture. While employers may not love the idea of having an employee who would be preoccupied with the finer points, a candidate who assures quality and strives for balance can be an asset. So the example listed is, my greatest weakness is that I sometimes focus too much on the details of a project and spend too much time analyzing the finer points. I've been striving to improve in this area by checking in with myself at regular intervals and giving myself a chance to refocus on the bigger picture. That way, I can still ensure quality without getting so caught up in the details that it affects my productivity or the team's ability to meet the deadline. Number 2, I have a hard time letting go of a project. If this is your weakness, share how you're striving to improve by giving yourself a deadline for all revisions and being proactive about changes, so you're not waiting until the last minute. For example, my greatest weakness is that I sometimes have a hard time letting go of a project. I'm the biggest critic of my work. I can always find something that needs to be improved or changed. To help myself improve in this area, I give myself deadlines for revisions. This helps ensure that I'm not making changes at the last minute. Number 3, I have trouble saying no. If you're so eager to take on new projects that you can't bring yourself to say no to them, share how you are working to better self-manage by organizing your tasks and setting more realistic expectations with yourself as well as those around you. For example, my greatest weakness is that I sometimes have trouble saying no to requests and end up taking on more than I can handle. In the past, this has led me to feel stressed or burned out. To help myself improve in this area, I use a project management app so I can visualize how much work I have at any given moment, and then whether or not I have the bandwidth to take on more. Fourth, I get impatient when projects run beyond the deadline. If you're using this as your job interview weakness, frame your answer to focus on how you appreciate work completed on time and ways that you're improving you're helping to improve processes to get work done more efficiently. Example, my greatest weakness is that I get impatient when projects run past the deadline. I'm a stickler for due dates and get uncomfortable when work is not completed on time. To avoid this, I've started being more proactive and paying attention to how I'm reacting to make sure I'm being motivational and helping foster efficiency. Fifth, I could use more experience in. Each candidate has areas to improve upon in their experience or in their expertise. Maybe it's something specific like building pivot tables in Excel. Perhaps it's a skill like math, writing, or public speaking. Whatever the case, sharing something that you want to improve upon shows the interviewer that you're self-aware and like to challenge yourself. Be sure, however, that you don't answer with a weakness that is essential to the role. A few common areas people need experience in would include verbal communication, written communication, team leadership, interpreting analytics, delegating tasks, providing constructive criticism, and specific programs like I would like to improve my PowerPoint presentation skills. Number 6, I sometimes lack confidence. If this is your weakness, you choose to present in your interview, emphasize why you value confidence, your understanding of the value you offer, and ways to have practiced displaying confidence in the workplace, even when you might not always feel it. Example, in the past, I have sometimes struggled with confidence. It has been helpful for me to keep running a document of the impact I have made on my team and at my organization to better understand why I should be confident about the skills and unique talents I bring to the table. I have also made it a point to voice my ideas and opinions during meetings when I feel they are appropriate and will add value to the conversation. Because of this, our team ended up adopting my idea for a new financing process, which resulted in a 10% decrease in time taken to plan our annual budget. Number 7, I can have trouble asking for help. If you know this has been difficult to ask for help in the past, explain why you know it is beneficial and the ways that you've tried to improve this skill. Example, because I am independent and enjoy working quickly, it has been difficult for me to ask for help when I need it. I have learned it is much more beneficial both for me and the business to reach out when I do not understand something or feel burned out with my workload. I also understand that many experts around me have specific knowledge and skills that can make my work better. While I'm still working on it, I have been able to produce more high quality work as a result of getting help from those around me. Number 8, it has been difficult for me to work with certain personalities. If this has been your weakness of yours in the past, explain the personality types that you've had trouble working with and quickly identify the reasons why. Then discuss the reasons you've adjusted your communication or work style to better work towards a common goal together. Example, in the past, I have found it difficult to work with the aggressive personality types. While I understand diversity in personalities makes business strong, I tend to quiet my own ideas and opinions around louder colleagues. To combat this, I have made it a point to spend more time with colleagues I feel uncomfortable with. By learning more about them, their communication style and motivations, I am better able to collaborate with these personality types so that we both equally contribute our strengths and skills. Number 9, it can be difficult for me to maintain a healthy work-life balance. If this is your weakness that you choose to present during the interview, explain the ways that you've learned to balance life and work and how you've seen your work improve as a result. You can also explain that work-life balance is something you find important in the role that you're applying for. Before providing this as an example, you should do extensive research about the company culture. If you're interviewing for a position in which it is necessary to have your phone on and available at all times, you might not want to say you turn your phone off at night to achieve work-life balance. Example, because I truly love my work and have ambitious career goals, it is difficult for me to keep a healthy balance between work and my personal life. I have seen a negative impact on my motivation and focus when I ignore my personal needs. As a result, I've made it a point to focus on creating space in my schedule, to focus on volunteering and spending time with family. Taking small actions like this by putting my phone on silent during dinner time is helpful. And when I maintain a good work-life balance, I have found my output is more qualitative and I can get more work done, and I feel excited about coming to work in the morning. Number 10, I've been uncomfortable working with ambiguity. If this is the weakness, if this is the weakness you are presenting in an interview, Explain the success you found following instructions, but also your career potential when finding comfort with ambiguity. You should also explain the steps that you're taking to define your workday when giving ambiguous tasks or goals. Example, in my last position as a marketing intern, I found that my supervisor gave very specific instructions regarding my responsibilities. Because I became familiar with having a strong direction, I tend to be unsure when approaching an ambiguous assignment or goal. It is a goal of mine to become not only comfortable, but successful working with ambiguity. To do so, I have created a personal framework for times when I feel overwhelmed or confused by an ambiguous task, including conducting structured research and asking subject matter experts for advice. Doing so has helped me thrive when working on ambiguous tasks or when working towards less specific or defined goals. Use this list of 10 weaknesses to help identify your areas for improvement, and remember to explain how you're working to overcome your shortcomings. By presenting both the problem and the solution, you can transform your weakness into a strength. So this is the career tip of the week dated June the 19th, and it's a list of 10 weaknesses that you could talk about in an interview. And one of the things I would caution is when I read some of these examples, it's very, to me as a recruiter, it's wordy. So don't get caught up in the words that you're saying. Be genuine and just talk about your weaknesses and how you plan to overcome them, but don't make them too wordy. Shorten it down as much as you can. Because to me, some of these examples were so wordy that I was like, I could forget the words if I was trying to say something like this. So just be careful. All right, well, enjoy the tip of the week and have yourself a wonderful weekend.
Rosanna, thank you very, very much. I know it was a long one. I'll try to find a short one for you next week.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Whoops. Let's see here. That didn't go right. Let's see here. Mark McDonald's with us. So give me a second here and I'll load up his pages and we will hear from the practice interview team.
And I'm here for lunch. It's not lunch.
And well, what's going on here? Is it not? Why is this not working? All right, give me a second here. Let's see here. Let's escape. Let's reload.
Jeff has got quite a set here. I first wanted to see it. I need to use, I find the longer I do this, the more I have to say. So I'm going to try to make this a little shorter than I usually. And this is kind of what happens to you in interviewing as well, as you want to talk too much. You want to tell all the details, but you don't need to tell all the details. You just need to tell the important ones. So I'm going to try practicing what I preach here and see how it works out. You want me to just go ahead, Jeff? Yeah, we've lost some video or some slides. Hey, there I am. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the pit crew. I have several things to offer. Everything the pit crew does is designed to help shorten your job search by building your confidence in your ability to interview well. Everything we do is free, and everything begins with my email for the pit crew, dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. So I'd really appreciate it if you want to reach out to me, that you do that on the pit crew Gmail address. That's why I keep track of all my activities. And if you contact me through LinkedIn or my personal email, then I'm liable to lose track of you. It's happened before. So let's start. So the first one is two-way interviews. They're panel interviews. They give you a chance to an experiential chance to have a mock interview based on a job description that you select and your resume, of course, and we'll also tune it up for where you are in the process. So if it's an early interview or a late round interview, there'll be slightly different questions and, to get you prepared for those interviews. You can practice early. I encourage you to practice early. That means early in your job search. You can practice even before you've been contacted by a recruiter or submitted an application. Just find a job description that looks good to you, maybe something close to your dream job, and send that in.
and come in and practice, because every time you practice, your confidence will grow and that will shorten your job search. Also, we encourage you to practice often as you'd like, as a matter of fact. So we don't mind. Come back and practice again and again for different opportunities or for the different rounds of the interviews as you go, if there's time. I guess I would suggest that there be at least a week between your practice sessions so you can integrate what you've learned, because you will learn a lot after each session. The interviews take about 45 minutes. We do them on Zoom. After each session, there's feedback for about 20 minutes or so, and that's also recorded. So you'll want to watch that, study it, and watch yourself and make adjustments to your interviewing presentation. And then, you can come back and practice again. So that's the first one. When you're ready to practice, send your information to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. That's your resume and your job description. And when you're available for the next couple of days, like +2 and +3 days, we're going to start doing some more off schedule practice interviews, so we can do them just about any time during the business hours and during the business week, and on Saturday if you have some special situation. Okay, number 2 is one-way interviews. And so this is becoming more popular. It's been around for a couple of 3 years now, but I think it's becoming more popular. And so the Pit Crew has an offering, and it's pretty straightforward. I give you the questions in advance. I send you a link. You engage the tool, which is called Easy Hire. They ask you the questions. You have 3 minutes to record your answers. You don't get to do do-overs. So you want to be prepared when you come into this. But afterwards, you get a link to your recording, and you can take a look at it. And if you'd like to record again, just start the process over. So it's very straightforward. Nobody's going to see your video. And again, you can practice as many times as you like till you feel like you're confident dealing with these one-way interview tools. Okay, the third thing that the Pit Crew offers is some coaching on this, just on this one question. Why did you leave your last job? So that's one of the very important questions that you need to have a confident and brief answer to. And so if that's going to be a struggle for you in any way, then let's have a conversation and we'll storyboard how to answer that question and how to answer any follow-up questions that may come as a result of your first answer. So that's the coaching. There's my LinkedIn profile. I encourage you to link in with me. A bigger network gives you more people to find and target companies. So you can just search on Pit Crew in LinkedIn or search my name and I'll be on the first page, just to include that middle initial. And then I think the last thing I want to say is that I'm looking for more volunteers. I've had several volunteers land. I'm not Walt. I've had several volunteers land. And so if you'd like to give back to the job search community while you're in job transition, the only prerequisite is that you've been a hiring manager as part of your professional responsibility. And so we'd like to have that qualification. So you're prepared to give, meaningful feedback to the candidates who come through the Pit Crew. So if you've got that prerequisite, then reach out to me. I got a great opportunity for you to help others and to help yourself as well. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Mark. All right, let's see here. Sorry about what you're about to see. Let's see here, as we get back to our current slides. Let's see here. Today for lunch, if you'd like to come join us today at lunch at 12 noon, high noon, we're going to go to Jason's Deli. You have to eat lunch, so if you're interested, they've got a nice wide variety of food. You can come join us 12 o'clock today, 4801 West Parker Road, Suite 105. It's a northeast corner of Parker and Preston. So please come join us today at 12 o'clock. In just a minute, we'll hear from Mina Brown about the one-page bio, but I just want to talk about upcoming next Friday, being the first Friday of the month. We will do open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Yes, we'll have a meeting. I know it's July 4th weekend, but July 4th isn't until Monday. So we will be here. We will be here in person if you want to come join us in person, or you can come join us on Zoom. Okay, it's time for our main event, the one-page bio. I talk about this all the time. I mentioned that I think bios are just more and more and more important. I've known Mina for many, many years now. I believe that there's 3 books you should buy. One of them is her book about it's called Be Sharp. The second book is Strength Finders, and the third book, of course, would be mine. But I do highly recommend that you buy Mina's book. It's a great book. It just lays out what to do about one-page bio. So Mina is with us this morning, and she's going to present all about the one-page bio. So thank you for being with us.
I am glad to be here, and I always appreciate being invited, Jeff. So should I take over your screen share?
Hey.
All right, here we go. All right, can you see that?
We can. And there's the book, a great book.
Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you what, and this is a second edition because we did incorporate just a couple of years ago new developments in how to present yourself, and gave a lot more examples of things. But the main reason we wrote the book is that, as you guys probably have experienced, one of the first questions, talk about being ready for interviewing. And boy, I couldn't endorse that more. Do practice interviewing, practice. One of the questions you're going to get very routinely right at the beginning is, tell me about yourself. And so, as my colleague and I have worked with career transitions, and she was in the recruiting world too, and we just generally feel like people don't answer that very well. And so this kind of lays out a very simple formula for that. In the first half of the book is about, how do you answer the question, tell me about yourself? Very simple formula, 3 components. And it's just so important to be competent and brief in that. So that's the first half. The second half is about bios, because we're seeing more and more. We had a couple of LinkedIn profiles up there. With your LinkedIn profile, and maybe if you have an individual web page, or if you have some other opportunity to offer your background, a bio is a really important tool. So we didn't feel like people did bios very well. I mean, we're very judgmental, aren't we? And so we decided we needed to offer an opportunity for people to kind of understand the importance and the use of bios, and also kind of how to write one, and what are the important ingredients. So that's what I want to talk about today. And I feel like it's a little bit underserved. I love the 10, what are your 10, how to answer these 10 weaknesses. And I agree with Rosie, it's Rosina, right? I agree. Those answers were long, but the conceptual framework were in the right direction. So being prepared for that, being prepared for how to answer those questions, and going through those practice interviews, you will always get better at interviewing if you get some practice and get some coaching like they're offering. It's a fabulous tool. So let's talk a little bit about why do you need a bio? I mean, you've got a resume, you've got a LinkedIn profile, you've got, other ways to communicate. It is one of the most important, I think, for professionals, and certainly at higher levels. If you're a leader, if you're an executive or a senior manager or director or something, you really, really, really want to have a bio. And then I pulled a little quote to put in my notes here that I was going to share. And it's from a HubSpot article not too long ago. And it said, why good bios are important for a professional. And this is quoting from this article. How many people actually read bios anyway? Well, the answer is a lot. More importantly, though, there's no way to tell exactly who is reading it. You'll always want to be ready for when the right people come across it. And when they do, you want it to catch their eye in a good way. While your resume is only useful when you're actively applying for specific positions, your professional bio is much more visible. And I would add to that, useful in any aspect of your career. You can live on LinkedIn, your company's website, your guest blog, your speaker profiles, your Twitter bio, or any other place where you've got a profile. So anyway, that was just an article from HubSpot, and it really summarized, this is exactly why you need a bio. So it is your professional, personal marketing tool. So if you think about somebody who is selling a product, they'll often, and I see it, and go to Overstock, and you can get a little tear sheet. They'll give you a little downloadable tear sheet with some specifications or a little more information. That's kind of like your professional bio. It's written in narrative. It's a prose for you to be able to tell your story. It's short, it's engaging, it's in sentence structure, it's not bullets, and it's not dense. It's kind of a free form narrative prose. And it should be the kind of writing that entices people to get to know you. It's like these are little tiny tidbits about you, the most important little highlights. If you think about, it's like a written trailer for your career. So it serves the purpose of selling for yourself. It's your sales tool. We all know, and you've had workshops on, and one reason you're here in part is because of networking. We know networking is how you're mostly going to get your new job. I mean, I do say to my clients, you may, and I do have clients who have gotten a job by responding to posts online. But the vast majority of people are going to find a good job and certainly get interviews through people they know. So networking is really important. Well, guess what? One of the best tools, and I would advocate better than a resume, is to have a bio, to be able to share that in your networking process. And again, this is for your whole career, whether you're looking for a job or whether you're in a job and you're meeting new people. And I won't go off on a tear about networking, Jeff, I promise. But if you don't make networking part of your job forever, you are missing the boat. Even when you have a job, you need to be networking. When you don't have a job, you need to be networking. You need to network until you're not alive anymore, until you don't care about anybody. So your bio is a tool to use. So let's talk a little bit about some particular uses of a bio versus a resume. When you are in a job, and boy, we have seen this, the Great Resignation for the last year and a half. If you're in a job and you are in an unannounced job search, so you don't want to tell your boss, but I'm ready to get out of here. The best way to the use of a bio in that situation is a great tool, because a resume just screams, in my mind, I'm looking for a job. I'm looking for a job. So if you have a good, nicely done bio, it's a great tool to introduce yourself to people in your network, and it doesn't scream, I'm looking for a job. And it's a wonderful tool for other reasons, but in particular, it's good in an unannounced job search. It's also really valuable because it's written in prose. It's a narrative. Now, it's not a 5-page document. It's 1 page, 4 paragraphs at most, and it's usually in kind of an open. It's not crammed in little tiny font, no margins. It's written so it's very readable. So what you have an opportunity to do in the bio is connect the dots of your story. So you have a story to tell about why somebody would want to work with you, why you would be a great candidate to be in this particular role. And it can help you close in some of maybe the questions that might come up when somebody looks at a pure resume. You can blend in a bit of a narrative about that. And then it's really short, and you want to make it readable. You want to highlight the most important messages that you want the reader to know about you. They're just like the highlights of what you want the reader to remember. So you want to put very few details, but the juiciest details in your bio. Got a sore throat. I've had a sore throat. It's not COVID. I've tested 3 times. I think it's allergies. So look at the kind of the applications between a resume and a bio. And they are certainly the appropriate, as you know, if you're in a job search, you must have a well-designed resume. And there are lots of ways to get some good benchmarks about your resume and how to do it in today's world with virtual everything virtual, you have a little more flexibility than you used to have when everything had to be printed and hand delivered or mailed. Those are back in the dinosaur days, doesn't it feel like it? And so in the resume world, the resume, as I said just a minute ago, I think it just says, I'm looking for a job when you hand somebody or send somebody or share your resume. In a bio, you can use it in anything in business. You can use it in your career internally to let people inside a company get to know you. Networking again. And it's really a safer document to be able to share kind of out in the public domain. The resume provides those details, the relevant jobs, the facts, the history, your accomplishments, your credentials, and the chronology of your jobs and the companies you've worked with. So it has all of those back a number of years. It doesn't go back 30 years or 40 years. And the current, I think the current thinking is probably back about 10 years. But you don't need to put stuff that happened in 1975. I mean, just that's not necessary. But in your bio, what you're doing is choosing the highlights of those characteristics, your outstanding accomplishments, just cherry picking just the best ones and putting those into your bio. And then in your bio, you can describe things in, like I said, in the narrative, in a prose. So you can put a bit of a spin on it. You can communicate things in a way that your resume gives you data. Your bio tells your story. Often the resume, and I talk to a lot of recruiters and a lot of human resource recruiters inside companies and externally. A lot of people don't read the resume word for word, top to bottom, front to back. They're really, most resumes get, I don't know what the current stats are, several seconds, maybe 10 seconds. When a recruiter is looking at 50 resumes, they're going to be glancing at resumes to see who are the companies, what are the key things. They're going to scan the pages. They'll look at maybe credentials and those things, but they're not going to necessarily read line for line. Now, some will, which is also why you want to be sure that it's well designed, well articulated, no typos and that kind of stuff. But mostly it's going to be scanned. And then the bio, though, is more likely to be read because it's open, it's prose, it's narrative, and it's easy to absorb that in a couple of paragraphs, 3 or 4 paragraphs, better than 2 or even 3 pages of detailed job-related data. So that's one advantage of a bio. The resume with the detail is essential when you're really getting down to the details of it. In the resume, it's usually 2 pages. I've seen more go a little bit longer, and I don't know if you've seen that, Jeff. They're going a little bit longer in part because you don't have to print them anymore. You don't have to worry about, hand delivering something so that it's only 2 pages. So, oops, I just messed that up. Sorry. Go back. I just hit my keyboard. But yeah, so it can be a little bit longer. And then also resumes today, if you've got some exemplary projects, if you are in marketing or if you're in investment banking or if you're in something where you want to add an addendum, you could do that as a separate page and attach it to your resume so you don't load up your resume with that stuff. So they can be a little bit longer these days, but they really are detail rich. And they're more dense, they're single space. Sometimes I see them that the margins are so tiny, it's like, no, don't do that. They need to be formatted so that there's a little air in the space, but they really are dense documents. A bio, on the other hand, is usually 1 page, and I really am pretty adamant about that. 1 simple page. If you need to go to 2 or 3 pages for a bio, you've just bored your reader. Your reader does not want to read 3 pages of your narrative. They will read 4 paragraphs easy, right? I've even used 1.5 or 1.25 spacing. So you've got some air between the lines. You use a little bit larger font. Now, some resumes I see a lot of resumes at 10-point font. I think in a bio, you can do something that looks more like a book. It could be 11. I probably wouldn't go to 12 unless you're using a particular kind of a font that is not as big. But it's 300 to 400 words max, just on one page. So it's very short, very easy to read. The resume is a job search tool, internally and externally. And the bio, as I've already said, is a multi-purpose document. Everybody should have a resume. Usually just executives and experienced professionals have bios. I would say that's another area that has definitely evolved. I think that most people really, particularly any kind of exempt worker, any salaried position, I would say it would be useful to have a bio. It is not limited to just executives. And I think, in fact, if you're an individual contributor, if you're in technology, or you're in a variety of different jobs that wouldn't be considered executive, I think the bio is still, in some cases, I think even more important to be able to weave your story in the bio. And then finally, the resume really organizes your experience and your accomplishments kind of in a chronology and sequence, and there's that. The bio really allows you to present the most important information about yourself. And it has a little bit of that chronology, but it's mostly telling your story. So those are kind of two examples or comparison of one versus the other. So here's kind of what they look like, the difference. And obviously these are just like conceptual difference. On the resume, you've got your headline, you've got your positioning, paragraph, your keywords, your most recent job, all the way down to your credentials. And then underneath credentials is usually things like community service or awards or things like that. On your bio, it's just this one page, and it's positioned usually here. You notice what the key difference is, right? Is you normally would put your headshot on your bio. I mean, imagine they tell us all the time in LinkedIn, a LinkedIn profile with a picture is many times more likely to get traction and to be looked at than a profile without a headshot. So a bio is a similar kind of thing. It's more intimate, it's more personal. This is me. So there's a headshot. And by the way, have a professional headshot. Don't take something out in the backyard with, your fence and weird stuff. Get a nice professional headshot. It doesn't cost that much. And no matter what you're doing, you need that for all of these different profiles that you might be using your headshot for. And I'd say then also update it at least every 5 years. I have a colleague who's been using the same headshot. I'll bet you it's 20 years old. And when I see her and I see the headshot, it's like, it's not even the same person. So at least get an updated headshot every few years so you look remote. I had to get a whole new set of headshots after I went with my COVID hair, because I had kind of reddish blonde hair before, and then I let it go white. So it's like, needed a headshot. And so your bio is just this one page, and it has 4 paragraphs, and we're going to talk through what goes in each of those paragraphs. Your positioning paragraph, your most recent or current job, the rest of your career in one paragraph, and then your credentials at the bottom. You'll also notice that your name and headline and some keywords are right there at the top. So you can't miss them. They're like your headliner to make sure people know who you are and what you're all about. And then your contact information usually doesn't clutter the top. It's usually in a footer. And that's usually a better place to put that, as opposed to taking space away from that top portion. So here's what I've seen. I read bios, I see them on websites, I see them with candidates all the time. And I know, and I don't have the be all and end all opinion about all bios, but I have several observations to share from my experience. And one is that when a bio is just kind of blah, 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 it's going to be boring. People probably wouldn't want to read it. If I did this, I had this job, I did that, I got this award, and it's just kind of data. Well, the whole point of doing a bio is to weave a narrative. So try to look at your bio as, how would you want somebody to describe you? How would you want somebody to introduce you? Not with all the just the raw data. You would want them to give some flavor to it. And that's really a key difference in the bio versus the resume. A lot of bios I've seen that are just too long. I mean, even single spaced, tight, small, dense, 2 pages. That's not a good bio. I mean, keep it short and sweet. You want somebody to read this, not just scan it like they might your resume. You want them to read it. So don't get it too long. Be very judicious. I do find, and I think it was mentioned earlier, it's sometimes easier to use a lot of words to say something. It's just easier. It's harder to be concise because you have to really choose appropriate, meaningful words, just a few words. And so being concise sometimes is difficult. So work on how to be concise in delivering your messages, in interviewing, your bio, your resume, all of those things. Even in networking, be concise. And somebody asks something about you, don't go off on a 5-minute litany. And so not too long, not too detailed. Some are just too short. Now, we talk about in the book, and I have 3 main bios. I have my regular bio, actually I have 4. I have my regular bio, which is 1-page paragraphs, just like we've talked about. I have a medium, I'd say I have Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. I've got a medium-sized bio that can be used on a website or in the back of a program or something like that. And then I have a little short bio that is used as a speaker introduction or as just a little blip that kind of summarizes everything into probably 5 sentences. So you can have some longer ones, medium, shorter for different applications, but you don't want it to be uninformative. You mainly want to make crystal clear when you're writing it who your reader is and what's the most important information for your reader. And then some bios are just not focused. And this is the whole point of who is your reader? Who's your target audience? Who do you want to read about you and know what they would be interested in? If you're in a job search, you know what kind of a job you're looking for. And by the way, I won't go off on this tangent either. The biggest mistake people make in job search is they look too broadly. I have a chapter in one of my books called Jack of All Trades is not a job title. You are not going to be a candidate for anything if you're focused too widely. You're not going to fit anybody's job. So you want to choose carefully where your focus is. You may have fewer opportunities, but they're going to be better fit, which means you're going to have a better success ratio. So let's talk about the basic structure. We've already said it was 1 page, a decent margin. An inch margin is a nice normal margin. You've got that little header at the top with your picture. So you've got the heading, give yourself a title or a tagline. So the title, if you are currently employed, it might say manager, technical support, and then maybe your company. If you're not employed, it would be a tagline, experienced technical support leader. So something like that, you'd have a tagline, which is what you want people to instantly, and we talk about what's the bucket that you belong in, what specific focused area do you belong? You need to tee that up on the second line right underneath your name. And then a couple of keywords. So if it's manager of technical support or experienced manager, experienced leader in technical support, then underneath you might put a couple of keywords that might have to do with some cutting edge technologies and a particular environment that you've worked in, or if you're network savvy, put a couple of those keywords. This is like that little catnip, a little bit of bait for somebody to then say, okay, that person is somebody I want to read more about. Your professional headshot, we've already talked about, and then 4 paragraphs. And we're going to go through each of those paragraphs. The first one is your positioning paragraph, and it's the narrative version of how you would answer. Tell me about yourself. It's basically your 3 factors. It's written in an interesting way. It doesn't need to be boring. Remember, don't make it boring. And then the second paragraph would either be your current job or your most recent job, and put in like 1 or 2 little tidbits of the most stunning wins that you've had, or the thing you're most proud of. And then in that third paragraph, everything else. Now, you might, in the second paragraph, if your most recent job was not the one that you want to leverage, maybe there's a job just before that you really want to leverage, then you might mention this most recent job, but then write that second paragraph about the one that is really in your sweet spot. That can still be in your second paragraph. But in the third paragraph, it's throw everything else, put it all in a big summary, and you can actually write it. We'll give you a couple of examples. And then the last paragraph is your credentials. And it's where'd you go to school, what kind of degree, what kind of, or maybe you're in a technical area. So what are you a project manager or PMP? Have you gotten training in certain languages or stuff like that? So that would go in that 4th paragraph. It's your credentialing paragraph. And then, as I said earlier, you put your contact information in the footer. So here's what goes in the first paragraph, which is the most important. We know that the most important thing is going to come first. We just know that from basic grammar in 6th grade. The topic sentence of a paragraph is the first sentence. Usually, it could be the last sentence, but it's usually the first sentence. So your prose version of your personal introduction. Now, and I've done with Jeff before, and he mentions the B sharp. The first half of B sharp is all about how to introduce yourself. And it is something you should really drill and really have that honed, because that's what goes into this first paragraph. But it's free-flowing narrative. It's interesting. So it's who you are. Like, I am an executive coach and career transitions consultant. That's who I am. That's my essence factor. Guru factor. What do you know? And what I mean by that, because I could spend the rest of the time on that, because I think guru factor is the hardest one for most people to really get their hands on, really sink their teeth into. But it's what do you know that is a leverage point that is better, different, more a selling point that's maybe your unique sales proposition. How are you a little better, a little different, what do you know that differentiates you from all your competitors? So for me, as an executive coach, there are very few of my colleagues who have the 20+ years of corporate leadership, working at the board level, came from finance and operations in the aerospace business. There are very few executive coaches who have that kind of business experience, in addition to 25 years in executive coaching. And a master certified coach. So that just tells you how old I am. That's why I have the white hair. So the guru factor is what do you know? So I might say I am one of those unusual coaches who has 20+ years of experience in corporate leadership and aerospace. That might be my guru factor, because it's different from what other coaches know. A lot of other coaches know, and I'd call it the secret sauce. And then the third paragraph, or the third factor, is something that's unique, that sets you apart. And this is something that normally does not. My dog may bark, so I apologize. It sets you apart from the standpoint of I'd call them the softer skills, or the things that don't necessarily just come out of the resume unless you find some unique ways to put it in your positioning paragraph in your resume. But it's about how you operate, who you are, either as a person, a professional, a manager, a leader. And if you are in that kind of a place where you can say, oh, I'm so sorry, Jeff, my dogs are going to bark. I think they're doing work outside. I apologize. This is the world of virtual today, right? We all have dogs and grounds, people mowing. So anyway, forgive me. So in that star factor, I might say, and I do in my resume, is that I want to throw something at her. There we go. I was just threw a pencil. I didn't hurt her. I might say something like, I have a unique, I have a particular intuition about my clients, and I'm just darn fun to work with. So that wouldn't show up in a resume, but I think it's part of my brand. And I'm sure you've talked about your brand and the things that you want to sell about how you are special. So I would say, I have great intuition, or I might say recognized as a good communicator, provides great feedback. And then I say, and I'm just plain fun to work with. So that's your 3 factors in a zip, 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 zip. And that goes in your first paragraph. The first sentence, your essence sentence, is what I started with. And it has to say who you are. And it's not who you were. It's not your history. It's not all the 15 jobs you might have had in the past. It is who you are right now. If you think about yourself as a product, this is what you are selling. You are selling this product. Somebody with this knowledge, this experience, this personality. This is what I'm selling you today, because we all know getting a job is a sales. Not everybody loves sales, or we would have been in sales, right? But you are selling yourself. And so you have to pretty boldly say, this is what you're buying. And so I gave you an example here of one of our sentences. So Andrew is a business savvy human resources manager with extensive background in compensation, benefits, and training. So it's a simple factual statement that you can say, this is the bucket, this is who he is, this is the category he goes in. And then the balance of that paragraph should be written like I was describing, what I know differently, what makes me a good competitor in this area, and then what sets me apart. So that first paragraph, boy, the most important is your positioning paragraph. So I'm trying to, you help me stay on time, Jeff, okay? So the second paragraph is your most recent or current job. So it would be something like, currently as the manager of human resources at ABC Company, Anton is responsible for, or he leads the team that handles comp and benefits for the global employee base, or whatever. So it's a description of what his current job is. And then you can add a little, something really juicy, in 2021, he received the Outstanding Employee of the Year award for his innovative comp plan. Just a sentence, because you're giving them catnip. I like to think about that as catnip. I want to entice them to read more about myself or this person. So you want to describe a little bit about the nature of the business. If your business is, let's say American Airlines, you don't need to describe American Airlines. We all know what that is, but you may have to describe a little bit about the function. If it's a huge company, what is a division, a role, a function, a unit within a giant company? You may need to describe that. But in general, if it's a household name, you just pop that in there and keep going. Remember, words are premium. And then the last thing you want to include in that second paragraph are those really cool accomplishments. You cherry pick just the one or two out of your resume, because you've already done that research. Cherry pick the one or two that's going to be the most pow for the person reading it. Remember, you always write to your audience. So what would they care about? Do they care about if you're a good organizer? Do they care about the breadth of the technology you know? Do they care about whatever? So know what they are going to make most important to them, and choose one of those accomplishments that fits what they are looking for. Remember, you're sell, 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 sell. Yeah, Jeff? Are we?
Well, Meredith asked a question in the chat.
Thank
If you're
you.
writing about yourself, is it in present or past tense?
Oh, I love this question. And boy, I'll tell you, I've been all over the map a little bit on it. If you are in your resume and your bio, it is in the first paragraph is present tense. And then obviously in your history and those other things, it's past tense. The other question I often get is, do you use first person or third person? So do I write it as I'm speaking, I am this, I've done that, or do you write it in third person, which is Mina did this, Mina did that? And so those two questions really come up a lot. And that first person, third person, I think is the biggest tension. So I may not have answered your question quite right. And thank you, Jeff, because I'm not looking at the chat. I'm going to let you monitor that. So appreciate it. But here's my take on the third person, first person debate, because I think that's really been an interesting one that's developed over the last few years. A number of years ago, I would say absolutely third person. You know, Ms. Brown did this, Mina did that. Mina is this, whatever. So you'd put it in third person. I still believe the bio should be written in third person. It is written as if someone is describing you. Someone is telling somebody else about you. So write it in third person. The difference that I've come to in I'd say even 4 or 5 years ago, I changed my approach to this based on quite a bit of research, actually, is that in your LinkedIn profile, make that first person, make that intimate, make it friendly, make that first person in that profile right underneath your name, which is going to say, it would say Mina Brown is an executive coach, blah, 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 blah. No, I would say, I am an experienced executive coach. And I think that the switch there over the last several years is that in LinkedIn, we are explicitly wanting people to get to know us, to network with us, to connect with us. And that profile is your way to speak directly to them. So I believe in your profiles on your LinkedIn, and I would add, probably even on your Twitter profile if you have one, your Facebook profile if you have it, LinkedIn profile, any other social media profile, Instagram, put it as if you're speaking to the other person. So put it in first person. But I'd say for the formal bio, because you don't know how it's going to be used and you want to use it in networking, you want to write that in third person. So I think that's a really important recognizing who your audience is and how you're addressing your audience. Yeah, thank you. So that's a second paragraph. And believe me or not, you can get it in the second paragraph. It takes some good constructing, some good architecture, get people to help you knock out things that aren't the most important, pick just the cool ones. And then the third paragraph is where everybody goes, oh, no way, I can't put everything in the third paragraph. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. So in the third paragraph, it is just like, take everything that you have done, pick out the one or two pieces that are the highlights, particularly if you've worked for a name brand, I'd call it company, a well-recognized company. If you've had an experience of being the representative for at the UN, or I mean, anything that's like gonna pow is really gonna get somebody's attention, that goes in that third paragraph if it's not in the second. So you wanna highlight. You might just say, and in mine, it might say previous, before becoming an executive coach, Mina was an executive in corporate jobs, in aerospace finance, and blah, blah, blah. that's it. I mean, that's all I would have to say in that third paragraph. I might, and then I think at some point, because I did work for Price Waterhouse, I think, and most people know who Price Waterhouse Coopers is. I think somewhere down the road, I put in, she began her career with Price Waterhouse. So little name dropping there, just little things that are going to catch somebody's attention. So you highlight that, but you just need broad brush. Take everything you've done in prior to the most recent job and lump it into a short summary of everything else. And you can get some, and make sure that what you put there is aligned to your reader. Remember, your reader, your objective. What do you want them to know about you? And then the last sentence is often just like a simple statement, like I just said. You can either refer to yourself in like Brown, like Mina Brown does, and then when you refer later, you can say Brown. Or I've gotten a little more relaxed about saying Mina started her career with Price Waterhouse. So I think that first name is a little friendlier, and I think it's less stilted because I don't talk about myself as Brown. I'm Mina. So I think that would be the way to kind of use it in that third person in your bio. And then the last paragraph is your credentialing paragraph. So this is where you don't need to put a whole lot of credentials up above. Don't spend your precious few words and space in the first 2 or 3 paragraphs talking about your degrees, unless it is extraordinary, that you were at Oxford and led by just leave it for your credentialing paragraph, because readers know to look there. They expect to see it there. So that's where you want it to be. And in the credentialing, you would start with college degrees if you have them, and start with the highest level college degree. Don't start with your bachelor's, then your master's, or your associate's degree, and then your bachelor's. Start with the highest level that you've accomplished. And just you can put 2 or 3 in one sentence. You can say, mine says, Mina received her MBA from Vanderbilt University, her BBA in accounting from Eastern Kentucky University, and attended blah, blah, blah. So just a simple sentence. And maybe you can put and majored in, or specialized in, or had additional training in, any kind of that educational credential goes first. And then you can be careful. One little thing here, common shorthand designations are fine. So don't worry about spelling out. Again, this is precious space. So MBA, BBA, any of that is fine. But be careful if you've got something that's a little more obscure. My sister has a master's in music. So it's like, and I put that as an example. So it would be an MM. Yeah, but then there's also Master of Mathematics, and Master of Ministry, and Master of Management, and there's all sorts of MMs. So you just wouldn't use an MM, you would use the name of it so that you're not confusing people. Now, in context, it might not be confusing, but still it would be important. And maybe from the school, it might not be confusing, but just be aware that if you have that kind of those letters, you want to be sure it's understandable. And then this is also where you include any of your other certifications, awards, publications, languages especially. We're in a multicultural world. If you have multiple languages, even if you have some that are fluent, others that are workable or passable, include those and indicate fluent in Spanish, familiar with Portuguese. So put those in there, because that's a really important thing. And then if you have community activities, and I'm sure you've talked about this in terms of the resume as well, I'm very selective about community activities. You want it to, and especially on a bio, again, this is precious real estate, remember. If it is something where you have been the president of the Chamber of Commerce for 4 years, or whatever, if you've been in a leadership role, or if you have been a national representative for XYZ charitable organization, that would be a good place to put that. But if it is not something noteworthy that's important to communicate, leave that for the resume. Don't put it in your bio. You want your bio to really be, all of the juicy stuff, and anything that's distracting just takes away from the rest of your message. And so I'm going to just show, and I'm going to stop here in a second and take some questions if there are some. But here's just, this is one of those world's worth slides, right? You can't read it because it's way too little itty bitty, but I just wanted you to see a sample of the way a bio might look. You'd have the picture on the left. Now, here's one little tip too. Which direction is your headshot facing? If your headshot is facing like this guy over his left shoulder, then you want to put it to the left and put your name and your title and all of that on the right. Now, if your headshot is facing the other direction, just flip it. You don't want your headshot facing outside the page. You want it facing inside the page. So I know that's a tiny little thing. And if it's straight on, you just get to decide. My colleague, Paula, who's co-author, she just hates pictures that are straight on. I personally love them because you can use them a whole lot. Yeah, Jeff?
Paula will actually be with us in 2 weeks to talk about headshots. So,
oh, great. Oh, great.
Yeah. So your partner in crime will be here shortly.
Oh, good. Oh, my God. She and I have some fun conversations about it because I do like squared shoulders, but boy, those are tricky. And it honestly, and I do agree with her, unless you really get that right, I do agree that it, turned one way or the other is usually more professional and more flattering. So on your bio, whichever direction you're facing, put your picture where you're facing into the document, and then put your title and name and all on the other side. So that's what it looks like. So the first paragraph is the juicy one. That's the positioning paragraph. The second one is, and you can't read this, but I'll just share a little bit. It says, currently as corporate controller and corporate officer for American Corporation, a publicly held global manufacturer and distributor of specialty metals, John, first person, John manages all financial operations worldwide, including financial aspects of the M&A initiatives. Now, I would probably even edit that down a little bit more today. I would probably shorten that as best I could. I'm also a big fan of look for any conjunctions. If you have a lot of and or ors or any kind of, try to keep your sentences under 2 lines. Try to shorten them. If a sentence is too long, break it into 2 sentences. Keep it short and sweet. This is supposed to be readable, really easy readable. So that is what it looks like. So here's a caution, and this is true on all resumes as well as bios. So this is just a fundamental, I think, foundational premise that, and again, other people have lots of different points of view about this. But I think in today's multicultural world, you want to be very careful and judicious about putting faith-based or political organizations anywhere near your profile, your bio, your anywhere on your LinkedIn or resume or anywhere. With this exception, if you are applying for a job with the Southern Baptist Convention, then you really need to put that in there. That's about the job. You want to put things like that about accomplishments and different pieces. But if you're not, or political organization, if you're applying for a job on a campaign, then you probably need to put some of that on your resume and in your bio and sprinkle it everywhere if you want. But unless that is really relevant for the job you're aiming for and for the target audience, just leave it off. People, we all have biases, whether they're conscious or unconscious, but we all have to be judicious about just leave that stuff out of the workplace unless it is relevant. And then I'm also, and I get pushed back on this, and I acknowledge that. I think interests and hobbies and that kind of stuff on a bio doesn't belong there. I think it's okay if you've accomplished something. If you were on the national team, equestrian team, hell yes, put that in there. But if you just enjoy golf and movies, We don't need to hear that. So unless it's an accomplishment, leave that stuff off of the bio. And I would say leave it off the resume. Now, I would tell you that I've started adding it on some little like profiles where my short speaker bio, not my medium-sized speaker bio, I have added in Mina enjoys something, because if it's a speaker application or some application where that kind of soft, kind of personal interest has an audience, then that really is okay. But be judicious about that. Most people just don't want to know that you love reading. Or you know, I love watching serial movies. I mean, no, let's not put that in the bio. And then I would also be very circumspect. Again, it's not a ban, but I'd be circumspect about things like your marital status. And then I have, you know, Mina's been married, has 2 kids and a grandchild and 4 dogs and blah. That doesn't belong there. I mean, just leave that stuff out. If somebody asks you in passing, great. But again, who's your audience and what's going to make it different for them? What's going to entice them to talk to you? And whether you're married or not, I don't believe that belongs there. I believe you open up a door that is unnecessary. It is inappropriate. I mean, it makes people think, okay, would that person relocate? Is that person this? And it's like, are they going to have work-life balance issues? Please just leave that stuff off. It's not that important. I think it can be detrimental. So I'm going to pause here, Jeff. And do we have any questions that we've got about five more minutes.
Yeah, well, we're really not constrained with time, but yeah, we have a question. Hold on.
Hey, Mina, it's Ann Bradstreet. I have a question.
Hi, Ann. Hi, Ann. I know you.
Yes, you do. So where does the bio go? Does it go on your LinkedIn? Do you attach it to the resume when you're applying for a job? Where does the bio actually?
And that is a perfect question. Here's the thing. When you're networking, where does it go? When you're networking, let's say you've gone to a meeting or you've had a luncheon or somebody's introduced you, like you'll get an email where I sent an introductory email to you and Henry. And I would say when you're doing the kind of introductions and you're meeting somebody maybe for the first time, or you're interested in getting in the door, your lead document is your bio. So lead with your bio. And so if I want to introduce you, I would say, and I wouldn't do it for you, I would give you the opportunity. Like if I said, Ann, I'd like for you to meet Henry, I'll leave it to you to connect. And then you follow up by saying, hi, Henry. I really appreciate the invitation or the introduction, Mina. Henry, when would you be available for a quick phone call? I've attached my bio to give you a little more information about myself. That's it, just your bio. Don't send your resume. If somebody asks for your resume, and that's often what's going to happen, send both. Send your bio and your resume. Again, they're going to read the bio. Higher probability they're going to read the bio and not necessarily read, but scan the resume. So I'd send both. So it's a wonderful networking. It's introductions. It's to give people a little more background about you. Bios are used a lot in marketing to go like on the back of a marketing. If you're going to look for some contract work or you're going to look for some short-term gigs, that bio is a great marketing tool. And then all of these the social media profiles. Oh, good Lord, there's so many social media profiles. So I think the bio works perfectly, way better than any other tool in filling in that little population underneath, like on LinkedIn, it's profile. And I'd convert it to first person. I'd introduce it with something a little catchier and to say, you know, nobody knows such and such like Ann does. And then like I do or something. So you want to go first person. And so you'd put it anywhere where you have a virtual social media profile. And then if you give any kind of presentations and I'd say for people who are looking for jobs, especially if you would be open to a contract gig, get some little speaking gigs or offer to be on a panel. Get yourself out there just as a subject matter quasi expert on something, and that can help. You'd use the bio and all of that. Does that answer your question, Ann?
Yes, thank you. Great. Anybody else questioning here, or we'll go online? Anybody online? If you have a question, please unmute your mic and you may ask away. Question. I know there's a comment Russ put in the comment box. I'm looking forward to making one of these one-page bios. I really need to get an updated headshot though.
And Jeff has resources. Paula will talk about it in a couple of weeks. We have, Paula and I both use a gal by the name of Leanne Baker, and she does a phenomenal job, and she's very affordable. And there's 100 other ways to get, but don't get a profile. I mean, don't go get a passport photo and think that's going to pass. No, it's not. But you don't have to spend a huge amount of money, but you can get some nice, and then Leanne will do a touch up. She'll give you a nice background, and she just does a fabulous job, but you definitely need a nice headshot.
Interesting. I was at a conference up in Chicago when I was speaking in March, and one of the things they had, there were headshots for all these people. There were like 4,000 people there, and so the lines were constant. They were getting headshots. But all the headshots were facing, if you put them on a LinkedIn profile, you'd be facing off the page. So the second day I talked to him in the morning, I said, you're really doing this backwards, because if these people put these pictures on LinkedIn, they're going to, if you don't know how to flip the picture using an art program, they're all going to be facing off. So they started taking pictures in the morning the correct way, well, what I think is the correct way.
I totally
By
agree.
afternoon, they had flipped back around to the other way again.
What is wrong with it? No, you are 100% right. Face into the page, and I'm fanatical about that. Yeah, I see some hands going up.
Yep, here we go.
So I have a question about the bio. So for resumes, you kind of target your resume to the job that you are applying for. Should you have multiple one-page bios kind of highlighting different pieces of yourself if you have done 5 or 6 different things?
Yeah, and I know I probably have a different philosophy about resumes than some people does. I would say if you don't have a clear focus for exactly the job you're good at and that you are aiming for, you're probably going to be back in that jack of all trades kind of category. So you really want to be focused. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't tweak 2 or 3 words or a sentence or a couple of things on your resume for the right job and customize it to the right job. I just say don't get carried away with that. And on the bio, of course, you could do that a little bit, but my theory is that you are who you are. People, you want to really represent who you are in the best prose you can. And it's not very detailed. So it's unlikely that your prose version, starting with your positioning paragraph down, is not going to change much. Now, what could change are just those little headlines, those little tag words. You might decide for a certain job to highlight a particular technology or skill or attribute that you wouldn't target for every other job. So I would say you could comfortably customize your tagline or your keywords, but my theory is I don't think you're going to change who you are that much. So I doubt that your bio, you don't need 15 versions of your bio. What would you really change? So I would be very circumspect, and I would also try to keep it so interesting and clever that you can use it in multi-purpose. You still can send a different resume and tweak a little resume here and there. That bio is who you are. It's your story, and it's just not going to change. Any other questions? I want to go to this last slide, and I don't want us to run out of time. Yeah.
So FYI, and a lot of people know this, Foster Williams and Mark and Trevor, who do the Who You Know show, when they have Foster's meeting on every other Tuesday at Stonebriar Community Church, they do headshots and they do a great job. And it's free.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, and to Jeff's point of view, if you can get a couple of headshots aiming in different directions, having a couple of good headshots on file, depending on how you're going to use it, might be useful. But I do struggle with, honestly, and I don't know what Paul is going to say. If you take my picture and flip it around 180 degrees horizontally, I don't look the same. None of our eyes are at the same level. Our ears are in different places. My head is weird. And if you flip my picture around, I don't look like the same person. So you got to be really careful about doing that. So if you get a good headshot, just say, could I get one facing this way and one facing this way? Great. They normally will. People are pretty generous, I think, doing that kind of thing. But that's great to know.
Any other questions online? Anybody want to unmute your mic? All right, well, I guess Paula, go ahead with your slide.
Okay.
And time-wise, we're fine. So I mean, we don't have to be done right at 11. I mean,
Okay.
we're
All
good.
right. So I just wanted to cover the last little bit. Bios, and more bios. The foundation bio is what I was talking about. Let me back up. That foundation bio is that example of the one that I just showed you. In fact, let me just go back. Yeah, that one. That's the foundation bio. You must write that and get that well honed before you can launch off into the octopus of all the other bios. That is a derivative of this. So get this one done, really get proud of it. Make sure it's cool, it's attractive. And I like to use really acknowledge language that's not too stilted. And I've come pretty far away over the last several years of not being too formal and not being too prissy. I like to put things that are somebody would like to read, that you can use a little sense of humor, make it really interesting, because they will remember. If I say, and she's just plain fun to work with, people are going to remember some of those things. So be light, be interesting and captivating. And so don't be too stilted about it. But then once you get your foundation bio, it is the source for all sorts of bios that can be derivatives of that. So that's your foundation. Now you can do things like, there we go. An executive profile, that might be something that goes on. It might be something that goes on a website. It might be an internal page where you fill in a profile on an internal website. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you might need an executive profile. Similarly, you've got that. We've talked about the LinkedIn profile. Spend some time to make that really unique. I don't know what the number of characters or words are, but there is a limit on the number of words for your LinkedIn profile. So that's why you have to be judicious about using every little character to make it sing your song. And then a website bio, if you've got a website, or if you're doing contracting work, or if you're an employee and you're on somebody's website, or you create your own website. I do think if you're open to doing some contracting work or doing a consulting gig or something like that, create that. Very simple. You can go to Wix, there's all these easy ways to create your own website that has a little more cool information. You need a bio on your website. Business proposals, if you're going to do a business proposal when you're employed, or even when you're unemployed and you're willing to say, hey, listen, Sarah, I'd be happy to come in and do an engagement analysis for you. Would that be helpful? And then you'd need it for your proposal. So you need it either in the cover letter or in the document. If you're going to be on a board, you'd need a board bio, and they're very different. They're a little different. The credentials section in a board bio is much bigger than a regular bio. You might need a little PowerPoint bio, and that would be literally a few bullets. Because if you're doing, let's say you're doing a presentation with a team, and you and 3 other people need to throw a slide up with your background, you need 4 bullets that'll go on a slide. So you might need to pull those keywords off of your bio to create a PowerPoint bio. You might have a podium introduction like I was describing. I have a medium and a small, the mama bear and the baby bear bio for somebody to introduce me, because you want them to tell your story the way you want your story told, right? You don't want them just pulling something out of nowhere and telling your story. You may be in a seminar, you may be a panelist, you may be a presenter, a workshop. And I would say, please look for those opportunities. Don't be afraid of getting up and saying, listen, I'm pretty nervous being a presenter, but I just really want to share what I know in this area. And people are so willing to support you if you just say, give me a little grace. And then the service business bio. I think a service business bio is it's a profile and some testimonials. It's a little bit of a blend, because remember, your bio is a marketing document. So let me show you a couple of my examples. On the left is my LinkedIn profile. And Jeff, I've changed that picture, by the way, since I put this up, because it's aiming in the wrong direction. I was just like, no, I saw that about, I don't know, a year ago. And it's like, okay, I got to change that picture. I think Paula may have brought it to my attention. So that is different today, but that's kind of your LinkedIn profile. And then look right down below, it says about. So that's where you put your about message. And and I think I've updated that too. Mine just says, my clients are primarily business executives and professionals who want to up their leadership game, change their professional game, I can't even read it, or reinvent their lives. So that's my opening sentence. Now I've updated that, I think, since. I think keep things dynamic, keep it fresh. When you think of something new that you can say about yourself, pop it in there, make it interesting. And then on the right-hand side, so the left-hand side is my LinkedIn profile, my LinkedIn page. I need to update this slide because I didn't see that last night. And then on the right-hand side is what I would say, that's my service business bio, because you'll see over on the right hand in the bottom right corner. Now mine is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mine's 6 paragraphs. So I violated my rule, but it is all based on the foundation bio. It is a derivative of my foundation bio. And then at the top, I put my headliners, so I'm saying extensive coaching experience, proven leadership experience, intuition, keen observations and candor, popular speaker, and outstanding sense of humor. Those are my little bullets at the top. And then I have my headliner at the top. So that's an example of, and then on the left-hand side in those 4 boxes are testimonials from clients who just say, oh my goodness, she walks on water, that kind of thing. So that's what you want to put. If it's a service business, people want to hear that confirmation that from other people that this is somebody I endorse. So I really like having testimonials on the service business kind of a bio. So wrapping it up, as Jeff mentioned, the book on the left is the Be Sharp, which has, and the subtitle is Tell Me About Yourself in Great Introductions and Professional Bios. And then the book on the right, called Be Smart, is a series of about 60 essays where we present, here's some common conventional advice, and then we take a counter position. So here's what some people might say, and this is what we say. So it's a series of essays broken out between introductions. I think I've just got a page. I don't need to go through this. So that's the second edition of that. And then Be Smart. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories is about career planning, marketing, visibility, which is networking, interviewing, which is sales, and then how to talk about money. We never know how to talk about money. And that's one of the trickiest things on a screening interview and the ending interview and all of that. So those are the different books. And there's my contact information if you would like to reach out. And I told Jeff when we first started, I'm happy to have this recorded. So you're going to make this available on your Facebook page. Where else?
It'll be there and on the Career USA YouTube channel.
Wonderful.
Well,
So,
Mina, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very, very much. Are you open to LinkedIn connections if people
Oh,
send you a
yes,
personal note?
yes.
Okay, so
But
you,
now I have a rule about LinkedIn connections. If I don't know you, I reject it. If you write me a note explaining how I should or could know you, then I will consider it. So I'm open to that, but I don't, if you just send me a generic one, I won't do it. I delete it immediately.
and I do the exact same thing. Well, Mina, thank you very much for your time.
Good
Great
luck to
information today. I hope
everybody.
everybody enjoys this. All right, let me share a few last screens here and we will get out of
Can I
here.
ask a
Next Friday, our speaker, next Friday, we're going to do open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you'd like to talk about. So if you have questions, bring your thing. It'll just be sort of a round table and you can do whatever you want. If you have not put your 30-second reductions into the Zoom chat window, please do so. That way we can get an email out to everybody. I'll get an email out to everybody who has said they're here, and I'll update the roster if you're using this for a workforce session. Meredith, I see you have a question.
Yes, Mina, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed this. Under the two documents you showed of your resume, your bios, were those done in Word or a specific software? And is there a template you can share or any suggestions on that?
All right, so let me make a couple of suggestions. See if I don't get distracted here. First of all, I always do my foundation bio in Word. And then you probably have already talked about this. When you send it, when you send your profile, your bio, your resume, when you send it, always send it as a PDF. Do you guys talk about that, Jeff?
We do, yes.
Yeah, all right, because you don't know what the computer is going to be that receives it. And computers are capricious and they can change fonts and they can change words and that. So always send it as a PDF. So my foundation bio and my resume, I don't really keep my resume up to date anymore, it's all done in Word, but then always can save it as a PDF and send it as a PDF. And so I use that Word document in creating the profile on LinkedIn. So it's just cut and paste, and then you go in and tweak it a little bit on LinkedIn. And I keep everything in Word so I can go easily edit whatever I want to change. The profile that was on the right, I wrote it originally in Word, but then I did, my daughter, God love her, is a graphic designer. So I have free in-house graphic design. So she did that for me. And I believe I maintained that in in Illustrator. But here's what I have also discovered in recent years, and I really encourage you to play with it. You can use PowerPoint to do some beautiful graphics that are so easy. So just turn your PowerPoint, instead of horizontal, to vertical. You can reorient your PowerPoint slide to a vertical. You can drop in boxes, drop in text boxes, drop in pictures. You're not constrained like you are a little bit in Word, but in PowerPoint, which is so user-friendly, you can do background colors, you can change the design. I would encourage you to play around with PowerPoint as a substitute for having to go buy or work with Illustrator. Adobe is expensive, but PowerPoint is so useful. We've started doing all of my workbooks for my students, my registration packages. We're doing all of that in PowerPoint now. So we don't have to worry about the Illustrator and all that.
Great, thank you.
Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I do use PowerPoint a lot. So I'm familiar with that one. And so it is a good cheap software.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Meredith. Anybody else have a question? Going once, going twice? Okay, back to my slides again. Okay, Mina, thank you once again. Thank you. If you've not put your 30-second introductions into the chat window, please do so we can get you added to the roster for this week. Career FW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Please join us next Tuesday. Kurt Vondermatter will be with us to talk about LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye. Kurt pays LinkedIn the big bucks to use the full-blown recruiting package, and he will show us what it looks like from the back end and why and how he looks for people like you. Next Wednesday, you'll have an opportunity to watch a practice interview. You can watch an actual practice interview from the pit crew. If you'd like to schedule your own interview, just go to dallaspitcrew.com and you can find out more information on how you can do that. That will be on Zoom only. Then next Thursday, being the 5th Thursday of the month, there'll be a special event. You know, on the 1st and 3rd Thursdays, we back up your 1st and 3rd, we do resumes. The 2nd and 4th Thursday, we talk about networking. But because there's 5 Thursdays this month, I'm going to do a presentation on successful job searches, focus on these 4 areas. So it'll be the top 4 areas I think you need to think about and talk about it or be prepared about in your job search. You can join us next Thursday at 1 o'clock. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist where you see that green arrow. Otherwise, you'll just see over 300 videos that are up there. But if you click on playlist, it'll take you down to 7 different playlists. And then you can go pick the list you want. North Dallas, Plano Career Focus Group speakers. You'll be able to, if you click right there where you see that red arrow, up will come a list of all the dates in chronological order and the speaker. This video won't be up till probably 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, but I will put the link in the email so you'll know where it is when, if you want to go back and watch the rest of it. Today, join us today for lunch, 12 o'clock noon, Jason's Deli. We'll be on West Parker at the northeast corner of Parker and Preston. We hope to see you there. And thank you for joining us today, everybody. Have a great weekend. Don't melt. For those in the Dallas area, don't melt in the heat. And we'll see everybody next week.